Oftentimes you hear buyers say things like the sales rep was pushy or the sales rep didn't listen to me. I don't feel the sales rep understood my needs and was able to truly solve my problems. So what can you do as a sales rep to make sure buyers who are not having great experiences with sales rep actually have a phenomenal, an enjoyable experience when dealing with you? Well, we got the answer in today's episode. You're gonna love it. Hey everyone, welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have a great friend. Her name is Tasha Smith, and Tasha is going to talk to us about how you can create an enjoyable buyer or enjoyable sales experience for your potential customers. What do you need to do? What do you need to say? How do you make this happen? Don't you worry. We're going to tell you all about that. We're going to break it down today in this episode. And also, if this is your first time listening to this podcast or watching any of our videos, go ahead and hit subscribe. Hit the chime, that little button, that little bell here on YouTube so you can get a chance to get notified whenever we produce new episode. I would love to make sure you're the first to know. I think you're someone who wants to improve your sales. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive into this episode. Welcome to the show, Tasha.
Thank you so much, Donald. I'm glad to be here.
Of course. We're excited to have you, excited to gain your wisdom and your insights today as we dive into this topic and talk about how can we make the sales process more enjoyable for both us and our customer. But before we dive into all that fun stuff, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do?
So my company's name is Emerge Sales Training, and what we do is we help entrepreneurs, be good humans when they sell. So most of the time when I talk about this process, the word enjoyable always pops up as how is that possible? And what we want to make sure is that if you need to be able to sell to feed your family, that you are able to do so in a way that lines up with your values and your personality. So we do a lot of one-on-one coaching for entrepreneurs and figuring out what are their best offers? What are their superpowers? How can they communicate in a way that is honorable to them and honorable? We try to just get rid of all the ick. So we just call it good human sales.
Yeah.
Which is, I know, something that you stand for. I've heard you mention that concept a lot in your different podcasts.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad that we get a chance to connect with like-minded individuals on that same vein. Because when I first started off in sales, I had a guy quote a line from this movie, but it was Boiler Room. I'm not sure if you remember that or heard that movie before. It was like
I didn't. I was too young when that came out. But I actually, in the book I wrote about Glenn Ross.
Yeah.
Which has a similar issue.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, because it was the thought that I had, and I'm telling you this all honesty. I remember in high school, I think we saw this movie. I don't know how they showed us a rated R movie in high school, but who cares, right? They did whatever back then. But I watched this movie, and then I thought, man, that's what the sales is like. These guys are so convincing. They're able to trick these guys and these people into buying these stocks. And I was like, that's awesome. And I came with this mentality for so long until I got into real B2B world of selling. And I was like, that is not sales. Those guys were con artists. And it's a huge difference when you're tricking and this one-sided and you're winning and the buyer is not. You have a huge issue. But when you have the process where you're making it enjoyable and stick with your morals and your beliefs and your values, then you're winning. You're both winning. And I feel the idea that I've come to realize is that sales is about helping the other person persuade themselves to something that's going to be in their best interest. And so happen that you get compensated for it. But it has to
I love that.
Yeah.
I think along those lines, I always hear, you could sell ice to an Eskimo. And I said, why? That is so unethical. I would never sell ice to an Eskimo. I would sell a coat to an Eskimo. And that whole idea, Donald, I think has ruined the profession, because then the good people who need to step into the space and serve and solve problems feel like they can't be good people They feel like every interaction is going to be what they imagine it to be from a movie or from a very poorly trained person. But anytime you work with a great salesperson, it is in fact enjoyable. You say things like, I loved working with Donald.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was enjoyable. So how can we level the playing field for all the people that you and I serve, for them to enjoy the sales process? I think that's super important.
So let's break it down. We have some sales reps, they're listening to this, and we have some sales leaders and some folks who are selling for themselves as entrepreneurs, and they're thinking, okay, Tasha got my attention.
Awesome.
Right. How do I do this? How do I make this enjoyable?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we have to first start by asking ourselves, what is it about the sales process that makes it unenjoyable? When I coach clients, we always start with the opposite and reverse engineer backwards. So what is it that makes it unenjoyable? Well, you feel like there's a switcheroo. You feel like you're going to be pressured. The other person talks about themselves all the time. The decision to move forward is confusing and overwhelming. It's boring, right? And you have to work really, really hard to connect the dots. Would you agree that those are the pieces that...
For sure.
So if those are the things that make it unenjoyable, then we can just do the opposite of each of those things. Many of the tips, these tips are not, they're not new. There's a new spin on it though, right? To solve for that particular thing, because we have to make our sales process customer centric. So most people say, okay, how do I build a sales process? And I think that's why you smirked when you said an enjoyable one, because we say, okay, how do I make a sales process that converts at a high level?
Yeah.
How do I make a sales process that closes high? Well, one dictionary definition of close is to unite. And you can't unite if you hate each other. So we have to actually go the opposite direction. So there's going to be some nuances that you'll see that are very customer centric. That makes it really good. We have to start by thinking about what our customer would prefer the interaction to look like, because then they'll engage. We'll convert higher if they trust us, if they see us as stable individuals that will keep doing the same things over and over, and if we cast hope for them. So should we just get into it? And then they can download a template. So if you're not able to take the full notes, we'll have that.
Yeah, I like that idea, because I'm one of those people when I'm like running or whatever, I'm like, crap, can't get access to it, but we'll put all of it in our show notes then.
Awesome. So the first one is set up an appointment. And this is one that we know, but don't do, right? And I think we still, as humans, have a tendency to sell on the fly. We don't want to lose the opportunity. And so selling on the fly, you end up in this conversation where someone says, well, what do you do? And you're like, I got a live one. And then we're so excited. We have someone interested in what we have to say that we just blah, all over them. Or if we're offering an appointment, we act as if it's abnormal, that this is the first person ever to say yes.
Yeah.
And so the verbiage that we work with, and this works with every single skill level. So if you are a new sales person, if you are a sales manager who has to bring on board, or if you're an entrepreneur, it works across pretty much every industry that we have touched. And so here it is. So you enter into a conversation and say something like, usually what I do is set up an appointment to go over we're in sales training, right? Sales goals, a little bit about the company and the most popular options. My part will take about 45 minutes. You don't have to get anything or move forward, but if you see something you like, of course, I can explain the next steps for you. Is that something that you would be open to?
Yeah.
And so there's a few components in there that I think a lot of people miss. And they're all designed to, I guess, proactively overcome the reasons people don't want to set up an appointment.
Yeah.
So we start off with something like, usually what I do, or typically what I do. Lay out the exact this, and this, and here's about how long it's going to take. Remove the pressure, and then do something that very few salespeople do, is ask consent. Yeah. And we live in a consent-based society. I don't think you have to email someone 100 times before you invite them. But I do think you have to ask them something like, is that something that would be helpful? Or is that something you'd be open to? Instead of just saying, okay, let's set up an appointment. Here's my appointment book.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be one more step to really gain trust, because we don't want to just set up appointments. We want to set up appointments that will convert.
Mm-hmm.
And
sorry,
go ahead. Oh, we need that bridge to conversion, because if they say yes unwillingly, then we're going to have a lot of resistance, even if they're less likely to show up for the appointment or keep the appointment, and we'll start off with more resistance than necessary. And it doesn't take a lot of skill to say, would that be helpful, to put a little bridge in there. Please go ahead.
No, I'm totally agreeant with it. I feel at the very end, use that statement. That's the same statement we use. Are you open, or would you be open? Because what I find in two ways. One, it gives the buyer the control, because so there's several things. One, it gives the buyer the control. Two, I don't come across as desperate. And then three, it's the idea of, most people are not going to be rude and say they're not open to something. Nobody wants to be closed-minded, as opposed to saying, schedule a time on my calendar here. I don't like that when I do cold outreach. Typically, I will offer specific times to the individual after they say that. And you mentioned that you heard this in one of my episodes, the conversational or the humanistic way of speaking.
Yeah.
Because when I'm talking to a friend, I don't go up to that person and then dump a ton of things on them. I give them chance to volley back and forth. And I use email in a lot of sense like a conversation, almost like a text messaging conversation. So I sell the next step, the next appointment, or the next action. So like, would you be open to that? As opposed to, like you're saying, would you be open to that? Schedule a time on my calendar and let's go from there. But it's like, would you be open to that? Yes, I'd be open to that. Great. Here are some options that I have available. Which one works best for you? And it's like you're saying, you're just stepping and guiding. You're giving them the control to purchase, and they can always, get out at any time throughout that process. But it's giving them that opportunity. And I feel when you give people that, it's like when they don't feel that you're desperate, and you give them this guidance, like you're sharing, they're more than willing to continue going forward, because again, they feel that I can jump out whenever I want, and it just makes it feel better. And I like those experiences too.
Absolutely. Well, there's no risk.
No.
I think giving people an option for a polite no thank you sends closing percentage through the roof.
Yes.
Because then it becomes enjoyable. They're not stressed out the entire thing, and nobody likes confrontation, right? I mean, how many times did you have a boyfriend or girlfriend in college or high school or 20s, and they just disappeared, as opposed to just saying, I don't like you anymore, right? And so it just doesn't feel good on either end when potential customers disappear. We feel so much better if they just say, I'm not open to it.
Yeah.
And then we can move on and still enjoy our job in pursuing and making offers without it feeling so confusing and overwhelming on our end. So yeah, I think that's great.
It goes back to also what you said. It brings another thought to something you shared a little bit ago about I'm trying to put it all back together now. It was from the beginning of the conversation was about the prospect. I'm going to butcher it. I have to go back and listen to your recording now. But you were sharing something about the prospect and the prospect, more like the prospect being in charge, prospect having their, I'm going to think about it because I want to say it exactly the way you said it. So I'll probably bring it back at the end of the episode now.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
It did bridge a gap between two things that was, between two of the things that we were sharing and from the very, very get-go. But if I stop you halfway during the conversation, it's because the actual thought came in. Exactly.
Awesome. I don't mind you stopping me to share with me my own brilliance. I'll take it.
All right. So let's continue down this conversation.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. So if you can set it up that way, what I love about this is it's at the lowest skill level, right? Mm-hmm. Regardless, anyone can execute this. And so the next 4 keys happen in the appointment. And it can be in a group appointment. It can be in a one-on-one appointment. The second one is to restate the agenda. So today we're going to go over your sales goals, talk a little about the company, go over the most popular packages. My part will take about 45 minutes and do the same thing, right? You don't have to move forward, but if you'd like to, I can help you do that today. How does that sound? And then Donald nods his head. You guys can't see that on audio. And he just made a deal with me. If he likes what I have to say, he's going to move forward today. So we've already eliminated the think about it, or at least kind of removed that a little bit by just making an agreement in the beginning. And in the first 60 seconds, your potential customer or potential client has just said, if I see something, yeah, that sounds like a fair deal. If I see something that makes sense for me, I'm going to move forward today. Why wouldn't I? That, right? And again, we restate that agenda, because how many times do we walk into a sales thing and it's set up one way and we're all of a sudden resistant that, okay, well, is it still going to be what they said? And so by restating this, we establish trust and stability. Gallup has done tons of research on leadership, and the research says what people want is trust, compassion, stability, and hope. So what you'll see in this sales process is we're hitting on trust, compassion, stability, and hope, because in sales, what we are leaders, friends. We are leading someone to be able to solve their own problem, right, through whatever solution that is going to, help them with that, be their tool.
Yeah.
And we have to establish that stability. So by restating the same agenda, it makes a huge difference. And by making an agreement, we're creating a trustworthy relationship back and forth. Kind of like if you're on a date. If we have a good time tonight, I'm going to ask you out again. Right? Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, yeah, if we have a good time, of course I'll go out with you again. Well, that is a great place to be, 60 seconds into a first date.
Yeah. And again, I think it's a small micro commitments as well in that process too, right? Like it doesn't feel overbearing. It doesn't feel too difficult to make a decision on. But if it's continuing to work, if I see the value, then by all means, I'm going to continue going and continue moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
Right after that, we need to go into, I think, what's traditionally called the discovery process.
Yeah.
And I think when we use the word discovery process, we become weirdos. At least I did in my corporate world. They called it discovery in my corporate job. And it always felt like an interrogation, I think. And so this is one of the things that makes it unenjoyable, feeling interrogated. So even when you have a well-meaning person who's trying to get to know you, it feels like you have a light shining on you, and they're going to use this as ammunition. And in fact, I've been in sales training in my career where they've said, when you ask these questions, these are the bullets in your gun. And I'm like, what? That is horrible. Have you ever heard something like, you've heard that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
These are the bullets in your gun. And I'm like, what are we trying to do at the end of this?
Trying to put them out, man. Come on. Give them
We're trying to. And I think that it's really helpful to remember that what we're really trying to do is make sure we personalize the information. Because when customers have to connect the dots, they have to work really, really hard to connect the dots. They'll cut out, right? They'll just get bored and leave. And what we need to do when we start explaining whatever solution we have is we have to make it so easy for them to say, oh, I see how that works.
Yeah.
I grew up in college selling knives. So we had to do, you probably know my type.
Those I did door-to-door security sales, so you know my type.
Okay, fair enough. So, I was 20 years old selling a kitchen knife right? So you had to connect the dots on what is this thing for? Why do I need 10 or 18 or whatever? And when we made it really easy to connect the dots, they bought, right? Because they were like, I get this. This makes perfect sense. And so the input questions we usually start with are really, really simple. Most people are just like, ask questions. Well, not all questions are created equal. And if you ask too many, it feels like an interrogation. So the first one is right after we give the agenda. What do you want to make sure we go over today? Step back, right? Show compassion. Depending on the industry, we'll recommend something like, I don't want to bore you with details you don't care about. So tell me about your goals. And we do a lot of business to consumer sales. That's who we usually work with. So it typically is something like, I don't want to bore you with details you don't care about. So tell me about the health goals you have for you and your family. Mm-hmm. And the initial response is, thank God, someone who doesn't want to bore me with. And it sounds, I think some people they might get a little resistance to say, hey, do you really say that to people? And I say, yes, all the time, because that's exactly what is making it unenjoyable, is they don't want to be bored. They don't want to talk about things that they don't care about. So what if we just acknowledge the elephant in the room and say, we just call it acknowledge the awkward. If you don't know what to say, there's something awkward in the room, just acknowledge it. So you don't want to bore them. They don't want to be bored. Great. Let's just get on the same page. I don't want to bore you with details you don't care about. Tell me about your health goals that you have for you and your family. And we just what else them until they're done. Depending on the industry, of course, right? How would solving this problem impact your overall quality of life? It's one of my favorite ones, because they don't move forward because they want the goal. They move forward because they want a better life.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting when you start with an income goal and then it becomes about, I don't want to miss my grandkids walking. That's the thing that's going to help them to move forward. And now we don't have to create false urgency. Or any of those things. And again, it makes it enjoyable. And then the last one is, what do you already know about, Emerge Sales Training for me, right? What do you already know about us? Customers get really bored when we start spouting off all of our company info. So by just saying, what do you already know about us? They'll say nothing, lean right in. And now you can explain how we help people.
Boom. Love it. Now,
cool.
So I did get my brain of genius. My brain started working again and spewing in data. It was going back to what you said and about how people don't want to work with somebody that's desperate, right? So if you think about it, sometimes as sales reps, what we try to do, and go back to the convincing mode, we try to convince the buyer even after they tell us no. And the lie that happened, how some people, they give you the trick, like it's almost like fine line, the fine print. If you truly gave me the option to say, Donald, tell me no if you're not interested, you need to live up to that and agree to that. Because what happens is they go back to the old school method and say, well, I'm going to try to convince you now and try to trick you into doing it. And it may just be sometimes, if I can ask the right question, perhaps I can get a better understanding. But if the prospect really says, Donald, I know what you're doing, but I am not interested, that doesn't mean keep pushing further. I just do not want to move right now. End the darn conversation. I gave you the out at the very beginning, and you need to abide by that. And I think that's one of that thought that came back, and also to piggyback on some of the things that you just mentioned there too.
Well, it comes down to try. Your word is your word.
Yeah.
And the whole, it's not a no, it's a not yet. I tell a lot of people will say follow up until they buy or die is the way I interpret it.
Yeah.
Could we just try to get on the same page? Could we be humble enough to say, Donald, let's just get on the same page. Tell me what you're really thinking, and let's be on the same page. And then we can both move forward, and it's good. And I love that you brought that up, because I didn't address it. And that was, I think that was brilliant.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one is going to be to personalize the features and benefits. So now we hopefully know their goals. We know how this is going to impact their life. It's pretty simple to connect the dots at this point. We use formulas like earlier you mentioned.
Yeah.
Right? This will help with that. There's 3. Earlier you mentioned, have you ever, and you may not need this every day, but you'll be glad you have it when. And I love, so this is kind of funny. So we work with a lot of people that in their businesses, they sell health and wellness supplies. And so when I think about shakes, do you drink like meal replacement shakes?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you drink it because you want to have all the superfoods, or do you drink it because you're on the phone all day or on Zoom all day and you don't have time to eat?
I'll probably say a healthy combination of both, but probably more about the 60-40 on the need the stuff that I don't get access to, and then it's convenient.
Awesome. One of the ways that we share is to make sure that we bring up these common scenarios, like, have you ever been at work jumping from meeting to meeting and haven't had time to eat, and then your head hurts during that really important meeting? Yep. Okay, this is
Yeah.
what you would use for that. They're never going to stop ordering that thing.
Yeah. Because it's because that thing continues to happen and they've experienced it and they know how sucky it is. And they're always going to go to work and they're always going to have that if they don't have a solution for it.
That's right. So using the have you ever scenario, and I think for whatever company you're working with, there are a set of 3, 4, 5 have you ever scenarios. And by doing the little pre-work to say, what are the have you ever scenarios where you get caught with your pants down? If you can be the salesperson, right? I always talk about, have you ever been, and this is funny right now, but ever been on the toilet, you ran out of toilet paper?
Oh, man.
It's the worst. And you know what? It is never your fault. It is always your spouse's fault or your kid's fault or your roommate's fault. And what we need to be able to do is we need to always make sure the toilet paper is there.
Mm.
Because if we can figure out what is there out of toilet paper situation, right? Have you ever been in this situation? Right? This is what you'll use for that. Or you may not need this every day, right? So you're a man. You may not need toilet paper every time you go to the restroom, but you'll be glad you have it when.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's why you continue to buy toilet paper.
Yeah.
You don't need it every time the way a girl would. So using those and to be able to connect those, I think, are really, really helpful. And again, they're not at a high skill level. And when we can have sales conversations that are at low, like easier, we can spend all of our energy listening. The more technical and the harder our sales conversation is, the less mental bandwidth we have to listen and be present with our person.
Oh, so true on that. I know we're getting ready to wrap up here and come to the end, but is there anything else that we should consider or know to make this process enjoyable?
Yeah, well, I think the last key, you actually hit on it, was just make sure you have 2 choices. So we don't need to go into that. You already talked about that. I think prepare your mind before you talk to people, that you are there to solve a problem. One of the things I prepare my mind for is, whose prayers can I answer today? It is fun. It is fun to be the answer to someone's prayer. I have a bit savior complex. But that's fun, right? If we are enjoyable, if we are having fun, our confidence, belief, and enthusiasm, that's going to be contagious. So we're not going to be able, we can't do the whole, well, when they buy, then I'll have fun. We need to have fun first. We need to be a person who is enjoyable to interact with from the get-go. We spend more time, we become a great friend, we're going to become a great salesperson. Zig Ziglar says you can't be one type of person and another type of salesperson. So the more enjoyable we are to be around, period, the better we are going to do in our sales. And then, I mean, I think that positive state is a huge thing. And my coach tells me, I'll wrap up with this idea. Every day, write down 3 humans, the names that you've positively impacted with your business. It's called the Impact Journal.
Yeah.
And that keeps you focused on serving people and helping people. And that keeps it more fun, instead of looking at maybe the sales that weren't made, focusing on the people that you did
Love that.
move forward.
Tasha, you gave us a bunch of really good insights today, and I'm truly appreciative of you being here. If there's one major takeaway you want folks listening to this episode to walk away with, what's that one major piece of advice?
I think you can be a good person, right? Be confident, persistent, and be successful. That nice guys, nice girls, I think they do finish first in sales.
I agree. I could agree with that. We've been pretty darn successful, and it comes around not trying to screw people over. So now folks are here listening to, they're like, man, Donald, thank you for bringing Tasha. She's amazing. I want to get in touch with her. How do they stay in touch with you?
Well, we created a little template for you if you like these 5 keys that you can just plug in your own info with. So you can download that at emergesalestraining.com/SEP for Sales Evangelist Podcast. And then, or you can just email me at tasha@emergesalestraining.com, and I'll respond to everything personally.
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate you taking the time to come on a show. Appreciate you coordinating and making that downloadable content for us as well. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. I love talking to you.
Hey, same here. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Tasha Smith. And if you want to go ahead and connect with Tasha, you can find all of her information down below this video. We have links back to her website. We also have contact information, how you can get in touch with Tasha. You can check out her book, as well as find more details about her. We wrote a really extensive show note on our website. And if you want to find that, you can see it. It's thesalesevangelist.com. It also pops up here on the screen. Thesalesevangelist.com/the-word episode number 1299. Again, thesalesevangelist.com/the-word episode number 1299. Go ahead and connect with Tasha. See some of the great things that she's doing. Check out her book, and also learn more about her. As always, I share stuff like this because I want to help you. I want you to succeed. I want you to find more of those ideal customers. I want you to be able to have more meaningful conversations with your prospects and to know what to say that's going to help carry them across the finish line. And obviously, I want you to close more deals. If you want to do that, go ahead and hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you can get notified whenever we produce great episodes so we can help you with that. But most importantly, my goal is to help you each and every single day go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video today. If you enjoyed the content, I ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, that thumbs up at the bottom right-hand corner. Also, to make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. This way, we'll keep you up to date with all the latest sales strategies, latest tools, and things that are going to help you to not only find more prospects, but to close more deals. Thanks so much.